What if the reality you've always dreamed of is not something you need to struggle for? Something that's already here, simply waiting for you to choose it. Imagine that for a moment. Many people live their entire lives doing everything right. They work hard, think positively, follow every method they've learned, still find themselves stuck in the same loop, wondering why their results don't match their efforts. The truth is, it's not about doing more or pushing harder. It's about seeing from a different lens. What if manifestation isn't a mysterious skill reserved for the few, but a natural function of how the universe works, one that you've simply never been taught to use properly? The quantum perspective reveals a hidden architecture, one where your role is not to chase outcomes, but to align with them. It's not complicated, it's just unfamiliar. And once you remember how it works, everything begins to shift, not outside of you, but from within. So this isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming your original state of being, the one already tuned to the frequency of what you seek. If even a small part of this resonates, trust that feeling and stay with this journey until the very end. There's a reason you're hearing this now, and perhaps, just perhaps, it's because you're finally ready to stop chasing and start choosing. And now that you've begun to question the chase, it's time to look deeper into why effort alone hasn't led to the shift you've longed for. The truth is, society has trained us to worship hustle, to glorify struggle, and to associate worth with how much we try. But this addiction to effort is not a universal lit, a program deeply rooted in fear and scarcity. When you constantly strive from a place of lack, no matter how beautiful your intentions are, you're unknowingly broadcasting a signal that says, "I don't have it yet." That signal is what the field responds to. It's not your desires that shape your life, it's the emotional frequency behind them. You might repeat affirmations, visualize outcomes, follow step-by-step plans, and still stay stuck because if those practices stem from resistance or desperation, they reinforce the very gap you're trying to close. This is the paradox that keeps so many trapped. The more they try to manifest, the more they confirm they are not yet in alignment. Fragmented techniques become like scattered notes without melody when not rooted in true coherence. The field is always listening, not just to your words, but to your state of being. So perhaps the real work isn't to try harder, but to feel deeper, to shift from doing into allowing. Letting go of the old way doesn't mean giving up. It means stepping out of a loop that never served you. Are you willing to release the outdated model of manifestation, the one built on effort, control, and proving your worth? Because until that illusion is broken, even the most advanced method becomes noise. But the moment you surrender that paradigm, you begin to tune into a frequency where your desired reality no longer feels distant, becomes inevitable. The question is, are you ready to let the old fall away and rise into a new signal? Once you begin to question the need for constant effort, a much deeper truth emerges, one that science is finally catching up to. You are not a solid object navigating a fixed world. You are energy, frequency, and information, interacting with a quantum field where every possibility already exists. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's physics. Beneath what appears solid is space, movement, and vibration. Your body, your thoughts, your emotions, each is a signal constantly broadcasting into the field. The quantum field doesn't respond to what you say you want. It reflects what you are in each moment. And here's the breakthrough. You are. Never separate from what you desire. Entanglement shows us that everything is already connected, already responding. It's not about attracting something outside of you, but about collapsing the version of reality that aligns with the signal you're emitting. The observer effect confirms this. The moment you shift your awareness, the reality you observe begins to reorganize, not because you forced it, but because your attention is the sculptor of the wave. Whether you realize it or not, your consciousness It's collapsing infinite probabilities into one experienced outcome. That outcome matches not your wishes, but your energetic signature. When your inner state changes, the external cannot remain the same. This is the power you've always had. The question is, are you using it unconsciously, repeating old patterns, or are you ready to engage it with precision? Real change doesn't happen through control, but through alignment. The more you observe through fear, the more you amplify chaos. The more you witness through coherence, the more reality bends toward harmony. Everything is available, waiting. The shift is subtle, but the impact is undeniable. Change the way you observe, and what you observe will begin to change. And if your observation truly shapes your world, then your body becomes the most honest feedback system you have. It doesn't speak in words, but in frequency. While the brain generates thoughts, the heart generates a powerful electromagnetic field, one that extends far beyond your body and influences everything around you. In fact, the heart is the strongest rhythmic source of energy in the human system, and every beat carries emotional data that either aligns or misaligns you with the field of infinite possibilities. Your nervous system constantly chooses between to mode survival or expansion. When locked in stress, fear, or urgency, your system emits signals of contraction. This signal tells the field, I am not safe, I am not enough, I must fight to survive. And that becomes the lens through which reality is filtered. Chronic tension is not just exhausting, it becomes a frequency of scarcity, no matter how much you want to change. On the other hand, when your inner rhythms are calm, coherent, and centered, the signal becomes a match for abundance, clarity, and synchronicity. You begin to attract not through force, but through resonance. The shift isn't about thinking better thoughts. It's about becoming a steady tuning fork for the version of life you want to experience. The body will always tell the truth, even when the mind is still tangled in stories. So the real question is not, what are you thinking, but what are you broadcasting right now through your state? When the body speaks with coherence, the universe listens in harmony. It's not about pretending to be fine, but learning how to regulate from the inside out. Instead of trying to appear positive, become a living signal of alignment. Because when you embody the frequency, reality cannot help but respond accordingly. And if the body is the broadcast tower, then the subconscious is the unseen operator behind the signal. This deeper layer of mind governs nearly every decision, reaction, and perception you have. Scientists estimate that up to 95% of your behaviors and patterns are driven not by conscious thought, but by subconscious programming. These programs were mostly installed in the earliest years of life, during a time when your brain operated predominantly in theta wave hypnotic state, where information bypassed logic and imprinted directly onto your internal system. That means many of the beliefs you live by today were not chosen, they were absorbed. And unless they are re-examined and rewritten, they continue running your life on autopilot. No matter how much effort you apply at the conscious level, visualization and intention alone are not enough if the internal state contradicts them. The subconscious responds not to what you wish for, but to what feels familiar. If your body is conditioned to stress or limitation, even the most inspiring images will be overwritten by the stronger signal of your baseline state. This is why accessing theta states is so powerful. It opens a window where the subconscious becomes more malleable, more receptive to intentional reprogramming. True change begins not when you say something new, but when you feel safe enough to install it. Your inner world must believe it's already true before your outer world reflects it. This isn't about repeating words, it's about transforming the emotional coding beneath them. So the question becomes, are you willing to meet yourself below the surface? Are you ready to rewrite the language that's been silently shaping your experience? Because when the subconscious shifts, everything else follows. If you truly want to alter your reality, stop convincing with thoughts and begin aligning your inner architecture. Real manifestation begins from within. And once you begin to reprogram the subconscious, the way you relate to manifestation itself must also evolve. It's not about reaching for something you do not have. It's about remembering who you already are before the world taught you to. Forget, visualization is not a tool for chasing distant outcomes. It is a method for anchoring into the version of yourself where that outcome is already normal, already lived, already embodied. You are not here to force the future into existence. You are here to align with the frequency of the future that already exists and allow it to collapse into the now. The field is not activated by need, it is activated by resonance. And resonance only occurs when your identity matches the vibration of what you seek. So the real question becomes, who are you willing to become without needing proof first? One of the most powerful windows for this transformation is the night. In those quiet minutes before sleep, your brain moves back into theta, the gateway to the subconscious. This is the perfect time to revise, to reimagine, to recreate. Not just by thinking different thoughts, but by changing the emotional memory stored in your body. Choose one small memory, one moment that still carries tension or limitation. Then shift it, not by denial, but by redesigning its meaning. When you do this with full presence, you change the energetic imprint it leaves behind. When that imprint changes, so does the way you project into the field. This practice is not about pretending. It's about reclaiming authority over how your past shapes your present signal. Tonight, before you drift into sleep, choose to rewrite one small piece of your story. Not to escape it, but to transform the frequency it carries. Because every memory is a message, and every message is a vibration you continue to send. And as you begin to reshape the meaning behind your memories, you must also learn to navigate the language that carries those memories forward. That language is emotion. Emotions are not obstacles to avoid or problems to fix. They are frequencies, encoded with information, and they serve as the most direct communication between you and the field. Every feeling is a signal, a pulse, a vibration that either strengthens or distorts the message you are sending. The goal is not to suppress what you feel, but to become fluent in its message without becoming consumed by it. Most people are taught to fear their emotional landscape, to hide discomfort, to chase only high states. But denial fragments your power. True mastery comes from presence. When you allow a feeling to move through you without resistance, you transform it into clarity. Emotions are not random. Each one arrives with a reason. Anger may signal a boundary. Crossed, sadness might reveal something unloved. Fear could point to a story asking to be rewritten. But none of these are punishments. They are invitations. Invitations to listen deeper, to reconnect with parts of yourself that still seek understanding. When you observe emotion without judgment, you no longer drown in it to translate it. And through that translation, you regain the authority to respond rather than react. Your emotional state is the atmosphere of your inner world, and the field around you always responds to that climate. So instead of asking how to feel better, ask what this feeling is trying to show you. The next time sadness rises, pause. Don't run, don't resist. Simply ask, what have you come to teach me? And listen. Because once the message is received, the frequency shifts, and what once felt heavy begins to dissolve. Emotion is not your enemy. It is the key to alignment. And once you begin to understand emotion as a signal, the next step is to become intentional about when and how you tune that signal throughout your day. You don't need endless routines or complex strategies. You need presence, placed with purpose at key energetic moments. Think of your day as a sacred arc with 3 powerful checkpoints each, one offering an opportunity to realign your frequency. The morning is where it begins. Before your mind enters the noise, before habits kick in, you have a window to set. The tone. This is when your system is most impressionable. Instead of reaching for distractions, choose to connect with a dominant frequency you wish to carry. Gratitude, clarity, stillness, whatever matches the version of yourself you are becoming. Anchor it into your breath, your posture, your attention. Then, as the day unfolds, shift into the role of observer. Notice the small deviations, the subtle reactions. Your body will tell you when you're drifting out of alignment. A racing heart, a tight chest, a shallow breath, each one is an invitation to pause and gently return. Micro adjustments create macro results when done consistently. And then comes the night. This is not just rest, this is recalibration. As your brain re-enters theta and the subconscious becomes more accessible, you have a final chance to release what no longer belongs. Reflect on where you reacted instead of responded. Rehearse the version of yourself that chose differently. Visualize the signal you want to carry into the next day and let it imprint into your system. You don't need to control every moment. You only need to be deliberate at the moments that matter most. When you honor the morning, observe the middle, and rewire the night, transformation stops being occasional. It becomes natural. Intentional energy, placed in the right timing, changes everything. And as you move through these daily alignments, you may notice one final pattern holding everything in place: the need to control. Control often wears the mask of responsibility, discipline, or ambition. But underneath, it carries the frequency of lack. The more you try to force an outcome, the more you reinforce the message that it is not yet yours. The field responds not to your effort, but to your energy. When your signal is built on urgency, even the most refined practice becomes noise. Letting go is not weakness. It is a bold declaration of trust. To release the grip does not mean to give up. It means to step out of resistance and into allowance. Surrender is not about passivity. It is about power that does not demand. When you no longer chase with desperation, you become the space where your desire can land without distortion. The paradox is that true magnetism begins when you stop needing and start embodying. This level of openness requires courage. It invites you to be real, to show up without pretending, to feel without performing. Authenticity is the most coherent frequency you can offer, and coherence draws experience to match its signal. Vulnerability is not a flaw. It is resonance made visible. The field doesn't respond to perfection. It responds to truth. When you release the pressure to control, you also release the tension that blocks the very thing you seek. So the invitation is simple. Breathe, loosen the grip. Step into the version of yourself that already knows it is coming. Because the moment you stop craving it with urgency is the moment it begins to move toward you. In letting go, you make space. In space, the field flows. And in flow, the reality you've been holding so tightly finally finds you. And when you finally release the need to hold so tightly, what remains is presence. Pure, aligned, powerful presence. This entire journey has not been about gaining more, fixing yourself, or chasing distant versions of reality. It has been about returning to the awareness that you are not separate from what you seek. You are the observer, the wave, the field, and the signal all at once. You do not manifest what you wish. You manifest what you consistently broadcast. Your thoughts, your emotions, your body, your breath, each moment becomes a mirror, reflecting back the state you embody. From the first spark of curiosity to the deep unraveling of old patterns, this path has guided you not toward answers, but toward clarity. The clarity that your reality is not built by effort alone, but by energetic coherence. Every adjustment you've made, shift in attention, each breath of surrender, Each choice to feel instead of resist has tuned your system to something truer, and that truth is magnetic. So now, as this chapter comes to a close, the invitation becomes active. What frequency will you choose to carry forward? What word, what energy, what tone will guide your next step? Declare it. Share your frequency in the comments and let this be the start of a deeper connection. Subscribe to stay in resonance with what unfolds next. Leave a comment to ripple your insight into someone else's awareness. Watch the next video to expand what you've just begun, because this is not the end. This is a tuning point. And the moment you adjust your frequency, the world around you cannot help but respond. When your signal shifts, your life reshapes. When you change your state, you change your field. And when your field aligns, everything begins to move with you.